on this channel that you gotta dip out real quick. You know, I've got a helicopter waiting for me out there once I drop these bombs, but guys, we like to explore, right? Here in the world of full preterism, we do a bit of potholing. You know, those people that are crazy and cram themselves into tiny little potholes to explore cavernous systems. Well, we plunge the depths of the rich stuff of the spirit. And we do so much to the consternation of the futurist. But hey, you know, we cannot live quiet, peaceable lives with these futurists who would shackle us. We're destined to be unshacked. With that in mind, guys, today, let's take a little quick tour. There's going to be another version of this video that's a lot more robust, but I'm going to tell you the idea today. There's scriptural support. I'm not going to oversupply that, because once I've discussed the concepts, the scriptures should be magnetized to you if you are inclined to steelman this. I'm actually still penning this out for myself and letting the dust settle on it. This is one of these insights that once you hear it, you are fundamentally changed forever. Okay? All right. What do we got here, guys? What do we get? Well, quite a provocative title. There will be no more resurrections because you're alive forevermore. I can hear. All right. I hear you. All right. You want to say your piece? All right. You can't say that. You cannot say that on a live stream, right? You can't say. But guys, there's a first resurrection in Revelation 20, 4-3. And then it looks like there's a second resurrection over here in Revelation 20, 12-13. The question came up, what's the nature of these two resurrections? Why is there two resurrections suddenly? You know, Jesus said he's the resurrection. What does it mean then that there's these two resurrections? What's happening? Well, it's all related to BH. And the key is the old covenant and the covenant relationship between God and Israel, right? We've got to look through that lens if we want to see clearly. So the 1,000 years being 30 to 66 AD will make more sense at the end of this presentation. So I hope. But there's certainly an idea that I want to put up front and center. I want to make people familiar with that idea, right? I can hear you. What was that, sir? You at the back there? You just said if you repeat a lie over and over again, it sounds like it'll become the truth. Is that what you said, sir? Right. No, that's not what I'm doing. Okay. Damn it! I hate when people rumble my plans. No, there's a really good exegetical reason to believe this. We've been exploring it over the last few weeks, but I would understand if you're skeptical. You should be skeptical. Don't jump onto a YouTube channel and just blindly accept. Let yourself be moved. You know, let yourself be moved at your own pace, right? That's fair, right? It's a fair statement. So spiritual resurrection of martyrs and believers, that's what was happening during that millennial reign from 30 to 66 AD, right? I can hear you in the comments. I can hear you saying, you just said millennial reign from 30 to 66 AD. Don't you realize that's stupid? It's not stupid if this is symbolic, all right? If that's symbolic, then it makes sense, right? Okay. Just grant me the serenity, right? Just grant me the good faith to accept that point. I love that I can argue with people that are not even in the room with me. Isn't that great? Like, I can't see the comments right now either, so I'm just making up this person. But I think it's a good skill to have. You gotta imagine what your skeptic might be saying, right? And address them in a respectable manner. So, right, 1,000 years is this symbolic millennial reign from 30 to 66, okay? It's a spiritual resurrection of martyrs and believers. Now, one of the big pieces of evidence I'm going to drop on you, this is going to be a bit to digest. That it is spiritual, the first resurrection, and not physical, because it applies to the dead, right? So in the context of the first resurrection, you've got a bunch of martyrs who have already been killed. Their heads have been chopped off, right? They've been slain. And these, I saw the souls of them, okay, who were reigning for 1,000 years, right? These people who had been killed, right? So we understand that if they have been killed and yet they are alive, indeed present tense, I saw the souls of them who had been martyred, reigning with Christ, then this is happening in the first century, and that souls comes from the Greek, psychos, okay? We're not talking about physical, biological bodies. And I feel like that's a very compelling piece of evidence. It's not the only one. There's multiple scriptures, but I didn't want to try and remember a bunch of scriptures tonight or put them all up on the board. What this video is me sharing the idea. And then we can shred it to pieces in the comments section, right? And I advise you to do that. Don't just take it as gospel, right? Let's tear this, let's tear into this, let's build it up, let's break it down, steel man it, straw man it, whatever you want to do. Okay, and then also those who are alive are reigning too. There's this reign that's happening between these dead martyrs, right, who have been resurrected. They have life, right? And there's also those on the earth who are reigning. They are alive, right? Paul tells them, right? They're seated in heavenly places. They're priests and kings. They have that attribute, right? And it's this idea of participation in kingdom authority. That's what's being communicated here, right? Colossians 3:1, Ephesians 2:6, right? I'm not going to cite them. You think I don't know what those scriptures are? Excuse me? I know. I just don't want to say them. I'm choosing not to see them. That's a sort of like a power play, right? But yeah, that works. I did the math. So, first resurrection, 30 to 66, a dizzle. It's spiritual in content. It applies to dead people who are already reigning, right? So we understand that they must in some sense be resurrected. Oh, that's the first resurrection. And similarly, that would apply to the believing on the earth at that time too. And it's a participation in kingdom authority. Clear? That's pretty clear to me. Second resurrection, the rest of the dead who did not live during the 1,000 years. Now understand, the rest of the dead, right? You know the symbolism here, the sea gave up its dead, the sea gave up its dead. In the new covenant, there will be no more sea, right? So what's that talking about when it talks about the sea, often used to, the beast of the sea, right? Being Rome, being those Gentile nations, the dispersia, the Gentiles who rejected the gospel, apostate Israel, right? The rest of the dead. So it's not necessarily talking about biologically deceased people. It can be, indeed, John 5 tells us that the dead, the dust will give up the dead, right? The just and the unjust, okay? But there's an idea here that the dead being raised up are also these apostate ones, okay? Just to give you that double meaning in the word dead, okay? It should never be taken at a surface sort of, oh, you're talking about biological death, right? There's a bit of room for nuance there, right? That John 5 really threw me, because it does say there'll be a reckoning of the just and the unjust. All right, scrap it. Don't scrap it, right? It still makes sense. We'll tie that in as we go, right? So I would argue in the second resurrection, I would argue right now that no Christians are judged during this second resurrection. This is about the covenantally dead, right? This is about the covenantally dead. I know, but that John scripture is really bloody throwing me about the just and the unjust being. I'm doing it live, I'm thinking it out live. So I'm saying it's not universal judgment, as in it's the whole of the planet Earth being judged necessarily, right? It still has that. That doesn't affect, John 5 doesn't affect this. There is a covenant reality and not the literal mechanics. It's not a literal universal judgment upon all humanity necessarily. It's more apostate Israel and those Jews who rejected the invitation. And the reason I say that is because Christ tells us that all the righteous bloodshed on the earth will be visited upon this generation in the first century, right? So that being the case, that they will fill up then the measure of their father's guilt, and they're told to wait a little season, right? These martyrs are told, wait just a little season. And obviously they died in the first century. We know that because the text was written in the first century. So we know these martyrs were killed in the first century. They're told to wait a little season in the first century. And they're already said to be participating in this first resurrection in the first century. It's kind of, it's adding together the argument. So when we come to 70 AD, when the covenant is coming to a close, old covenant Jerusalem is being judged. We know it's being judged, right? When you see the armies encompass Jerusalem, know its desolation is near, okay? When the power of the holy people is being completely shattered, then all these things will be finished. That's the last eschatological domino to fall. That's that visual ransacking and siege that destroys Jerusalem and destroys the temple. Well, this is kind of like a more kind of spiritual, legalistic description of what's happening in accordance with covenant. So death and Hades giving up their dead, that's the dominion of the old covenant being destroyed. Okay, death, okay, the law of death, death and Hades, a little bit of Hellenistic flourish in there, but that's to represent the dominion of the old covenant being destroyed. So does that make sense then? So what I'm saying is the first resurrection is that 30 to 66 AD period where Christ is reigning, all power in heaven and earth has been given unto me, right? We know Christ is reigning from the first century. We're told these dead martyrs who have died in that first century in this period are ruling with Christ, okay? So we know that they're resurrected in some sense. So we know this applies to them. We know that, right? So the idea that it's participation in kingdom authority back there, I feel we've got that. Put a bow in that. We're going to put a bow in the first resurrection. Oh, we got it. Check. Understood, right? Mission accomplished. This one over here, this makes sense. However, I don't have the resources to do this live, right? I'll come around and check the comments. So if somebody's in the comments right now, can you dig into John? Could you dig up the judgment of the just and the unjust? Like whatever it says in John 5 about the dust of the earth giving up the dead. The hour is coming and now is when those who lie in the dust of the earth shall arise, some to everlasting life, others to everlasting condemnation. Right. Is that a problem for me? Is that a problem for this? It's not as neat and tidy as I thought it was. I'm not able to present it live then in a neat and tidy way. I feel like we've got this, right? We've got that all tied up in a neat little bow, right? That's my little drawing of a little bow there. Forgive me, it's not that neat. Let's put a little bit here. We'll give it a little bit of this, and that's just little tassels, right? That's in a bow. But I need that John 5 thing sorted out for me. If you can do that in the chat. How does that fit? Maybe it doesn't, right? You don't have to steel man the argument. I'm just trying to understand. I feel like I'm onto something here. I feel like this makes sense. And I just have this little unclear detail that I haven't quite pinned down, right? So, yeah, if you want to get involved in that discussion, that may be one to be had, because it's bothering me. Went on about it for a while now, so we'll deal with that one, right? Let's dig into that. I have more notes on this. As I say, this is not me presenting the solid case. I just wanted to do something a little offhand, generate a little discussion, generate a little controversy. And, when something doesn't sit right with me, it niggles at me. So I don't remember how I resolved this, how I have resolved this. So that could be an interesting one for the chat. But just to come to these concluding points then, so the first resurrection is covenant-based and not biological. It's about entrance into the new covenant and spirit authority, based that on Daniel 7:22. The 1,000 years is symbolic. It's a period marking the triumph of the gospel and the church's spiritual reign. Okay? It's qualitative and not a quantitative value. And certainly we can see how that reign, like if you're going to reign with Christ, if you're going to reign, then the reign obviously has to correlate and be compatible with the reign of Christ, right? Which began in the first century, right? Now you can slide the scale then and just say, well, all right, well, it started in 30 AD and it's been reigning for 2020 odd years now. So we can just, 1,000 years can fit anywhere between there. You could do that. Don't do that. Stop making it hard for me, right? Just don't do that. Why am I giving you ideas? Don't do that. But what I'm saying is, you can see everything makes sense here, right? It's compatible. It's the first century. We have these people we have this in a bow. I drew the bow, right? Don't argue with me. I drew a bow on the bloody board. My work is done, right? And the second resurrection, end of the old covenant world. All right, it's a powerful statement. And, you can see that I'm not against throwing chinks in the armor. So, the second resurrection, this is the more difficult one to kind of tie up in a neat bow, which is good. It shouldn't be easy. And we have the AD 70 judgment of the dead. And my argument would be that correlates so well, with the prince of the people who are to come, Vespasian sending in Titus to put his armies to encompass them around Jerusalem, to knock down the temple, Matthew 24, tell us when will these things be in the sign of your coming, after discussing the temple being taken down. So you can see what I'm saying here, right? And I feel like it's our job together now to see what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses of this presentation. As it is, I do have a better form of presentation here. I just didn't have the time or the energy to present this as bombastically, as completely as I might otherwise do. So let's leave it open for discussion. I want to see where this goes, what kind of conversation this generates. You can see the first resurrection, 30 to 66 AD. The second resurrection, 70 AD, boom, Great White Throne Judgment, right? So let's see what we're doing in the chat. We might be doing nothing in the chat. That's fair dues. Let's see what's happening. Oh, we've got some chat. Glad you're having a look at this question. All right, Stephen. Your title throws me off. I see resurrections happening daily when a new believer comes to Christ. Okay, that's a good one. Let's deal with that. How dare you question me? I'm joking. Right, so I'm being provocative deliberately. And my point is that what you're observing, my point to you would be what you're observing is not someone being resurrected. What you're seeing is someone realizing the victory of Christ. It's a realization, which you could characterize as a resurrection. I'm okay with that. This is just a little rhetorical device to generate interest, right? But my point would be that covenantally, resurrection, as described in the Bible, is an occurrence here and here, 70 AD and the 30 to 66 AD period. Once we're after 70 AD, resurrection, Christ is the resurrection. He possesses the kingdoms of the world, right? The victory has been established. So that the argument would be there that, I'm not trying to say that resurrection doesn't happen in some sense. I'm just trying to say that God's disposition towards the world isn't such now that he has to send Christ in to die again. right? We don't need to go through another messianic period because the work has been complete, right? Christ is the resurrection. He has completed his work. The dominion is with God. They are one. We're invited into that oneness, that theosis, and we have that, you know, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess, you know, Jesus Christ is Lord. We have that dispositionally, right? It's that idea again that the church didn't, through faith, orchestrate the new covenant. That was God. That was the machinations of God influencing the world. That's the way the relationship works. We don't force God to do stuff. God kind of distills his truth into humanity through humanity. So I feel like I justified that. Maybe I didn't. But that was a really good question. It gave me something to chew on, mailbox. And I'm like a dog. I love a chew toy. The lack of physical resurrection and Achilles' heel to the modern church. Yeah, you're right. It is an Achilles' heel. Just and unjust, sheep and goats, wheat and tails. Is there a connection between all these? Yeah, I'm just going to say yes. That's too deep a question for me. No, there definitely is. Those things really tie together. Mailbox says, I think it has to do more with position rather than physical realities. Yeah, it's more about that kind of internal position, right? Lady says, Daniel 12:2, and many of those that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some unto lasting life and others unto reproach, to see it always. Right, that's the verse I need to graft that into my argument in a way that makes sense. I'm not saying I haven't done that in totality. I just haven't been able to do it to my own satisfaction tonight. And I don't think I have the mental dexterity to pull that off tonight. I would need to consult my notes, and I don't have them handy right now. John 5, I'm full of excuses tonight, guys. John 5:29, and they shall come forth, those who did the good things, to a rising again of life, and those who practice the evil things to a rising again of judgment. Yeah, okay, I can see the finesse in it now. I can see the complex spiritual reality and how that doesn't always neatly map onto big apocalyptic symbology and the stuff of the world. John 5:29, and that's it. And they that have done good things shall come forth unto the resurrection of life, but they have done evil unto the resurrection of judgment. There it is again. It's a juicy little verse. Stephen, it seems like John and Jesus, etc., only talk of one resurrection, and the only time I can think I find of two resurrections is in Revelation. Is that right? Right, Stephen, you've just touched on something. Like, that's what struck me about all this too. There is a resurrection spoken of, right? And it's just like Mailbox's point. Mailbox is right, okay? Resurrections happen all the time. They happen every day. The point is, what do I mean by that? So Christ talks about the resurrection and the life. So there's really four resurrections in this conversation. There is Christ himself. I am the resurrection and the life. There's the first resurrection in Revelation 24-6. There's the third resurrection, because it's Christ, the first, and then here, the second, Revelation 20:12-13. And then the fourth resurrection is the one that Mailbox just talked about. All those resurrections that happen every day. And so I guess what we're doing with this apocalyptic book in Revelation is that we're taking the concept of resurrection and we're applying it liberally and artistically and mythopoetically to communicate things that are probably too transcendent to fully understand, right? It's probably so mystical, so beyond, right? Paul talked about peace that surpasseth understanding. Perhaps there's other things that surpass understanding too. Perhaps this didn't actually like historically play out, but did mythopoetically. It's that difference, right? That tension between how do you communicate something powerfully to humanity who have limited insight based on being human creatures with zero insight into the metaphysics of the universe and existence. So maybe this is a beautiful picture, but ultimately the whole thing played out at this point here. This is the main point here. Or maybe none of this. Maybe none of it. Maybe none of it. Right? Because at the same, I mean, if you think about it, this is a big abstract idea. If you, Neil deGrasse Tyson does this better than me. So a photon travels at the speed of light, does not experience time, right? So from the moment a photon shoots off the face of the sun and then hits our retina, no time has passed, right? And the reason I say that is just to kind of loosen the ground. If you die 5,000 years ago or 5,000 years in the future, you're not waiting for this event, right? You are not waiting for Jerusalem to fall. That has precisely zero bearing on a realm that exists outside of time and space. You know, do you know what I'm saying there? Now, I understand there's a desire, there's a kind of traditionalism that's like, whoa, boy, hold your horses. Let's not say that. This matters. This time and space on Earth mattered. When the temple fell, that shook the heavens. But again, that goes back to my idea of, really? Like, is that how God works? Like, God was waiting for bricks to fall from a physical building, and then God decided at that point, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save humanity. I'm going to take them from this slumberous state and then put them in heaven. But I need to wait for the bricks to fall down for this building first. And that's, what time is it just now? You know what I mean? Like, as if God's in the universe waiting for this Earth to rotate around the sun a number of times, as if that's dictating terms to God. So maybe all of this is just a sort of instructive, revelatory story that actually happened. I'm not trying to dismiss the whole faith. Like, I watched your latest video, William, and I'm an atheist now. No, Christ walked the earth. Christ had his ministry, Son of God. That happened. All I'm saying is there's metaphysical stuff that's really hard to get. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's totally mind-blowing and that God had to condescend in such a way. And the only reason I raise those ideas is to kind of touch on that point that Stephen brought up is, well, what is it? Is Jesus the resurrection? Is that a resurrection? Is this a resurrection? Is this a resurrection? Are you a resurrection? Well, yes and no. Oh, that's a little profound moment. Yes and no. What a cop-out, guys. What a cop-out. That's like that Key and Peele sketch where Neil deGrasse Tyson gets out of cheating on his wife because he starts talking about the universe. Let's see. Good point there. The Vulgate. Yeah, get that Vulgate open. I need into that Vulgate right now. Unto the resurrection of judgment. That is condemnation. KJV uses Masoretic texts. Or Masoretic? Yeah, man, I hate those Masoretic texts. I don't know. I'm quite new to these things, just learning, asking questions. The questions are amazing, great quality. Sorry I have to run, I'll be back. No worries. Right, she's gone, everybody. Let's trash talk her. Only joking. There's only blessings here. I like the Young's literal translation. It uses Texas Receptus. Dude, I love the Young's literal translation. It's a full preterist's Bible, that one. Morris E. Rogers gives a good understanding of the rest of the dead. Check him out. Thank you, Gary. I will do that. The resurrection of the unjust definitely happened in 70 AD. How it looked, I don't know. Yeah, there's that hiddenness to these things. Daniel says you should get together with other preterists like Ward Fenley from his channel, NCMI Live, and Michael Miano. We would love to see you guys talk about these things live. You know, Ward is a friend of the channel. He will pop on the channel sometimes. So if Ward is listening, I love that guy. I think Ward is a genuinely lovely human being. I would love to speak to him. And Michael Miano was one of the first people I ever saw speaking about full preterism. He was debating Sam Frost, and Sam Frost came across frosty, right? I'll say that much. He really didn't do himself any favours by being a bit haughty. Right, so let's do that, Daniel. Let's get them involved. I will reach out to them, especially when my book comes out, which all this informs, by the way. I've still got time to edit stuff to make it sound cooler. So it's wonderful how perfectly woven it all is. It really is, Mailbox. Ezekiel 37 goes over the corporate body resurrection. That's being looked forward to. 100%, man. That's all part of it. There's Grady. Hola, hola. Tu tambien, mon ami. That doesn't make any sense. I just like to try and speak Spanish. Jesus is the person that spiritualized the kingdom, not us preterists. It's a good point. Yep. So smug. Yeah, man, he was smug in that debate. The New American Standard Bible, 1995, is my favorite translation. Dude, it's nice to have a relationship with a text that really speaks to you. And I think there's room for that. Some people get really purist with their interpretation of the Bible, but remember, sola scriptura, meh. Sola spiritus, absolutely. So, guys, I think we've completed the mission for tonight. Sunday, I like to keep Sunday informal. So Sunday, I'll just come on the board. I call it like a clean board, and I put up whatever the audience wants, whatever you, the viewer, wants to see, rather, and we'll explore it together. I just wanted to put this up to present the idea. You've seen the idea now. It's going to hit everyone a little bit different. I've left a lot of space in here, a lot of space for thought, because I knew this wouldn't be the last time I touch on this. Let's give it 2 weeks. Nah, it's too long a time. Let's give it a week, then we'll come back. I'll hit the books hard and give you a massive presentation on this, but you might not need that right now. And ultimately, it's not what I say that's going to convince you. It's what you think and how you feel about what's just been presented to you, right? I'm not the one that's going to change your mind. That's between you and the Lord. Not that I'm saying this is, the Lord's advocate and you believe this. That'd be a haughty thing for me to say. This is what I think is true. And I'm sure God loves you no matter what you believe. As long as you don't believe in cannibalism and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? But, as long as you're a good Christian and you move in love. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I've got some interesting things to talk about tomorrow. I want to talk about after the summer. I want to talk about the autumn and the plans I have for the autumn in terms of what preterism needs and what might help preterism kind of breach the pop culture. It's not quite there. We're not breaching pop culture just now. I've got a couple of wee ideas to get us there, right? A couple of wee ideas. So let's see. Alrighty. Yep, mailbox. I like to read all of them. That's quite an appetite you've got there. See how they differ in thought. All translations are biased. That's really good, man. That's a wise saying. I have no respect for Sam Frost. Zero zilch nada. The man is, yeah, he's a something or other. I'll tell you that. No, I can't put that to the record. I'll just say Sam is a acquired taste. Daniel, I totally agree. I call him Sam Fraud. Guys, let's put a diss track on Sam Frost right now. Somebody lay down a beat. You want to hear a Scottish man rap? No, I'm not going to do that. Right, so we got it done. We got it said. We said we're peace. It's right there on the board. It's presented. Very simple. There's lots to colour in there, but I tied a bow on this one. At least there's a bow tied on that. This we can discuss in a bit more detail in the future. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And tomorrow we'll go on for a few hours, right? We're going to run riot tomorrow. Supposedly Jesus said that the Septuagint, read from the Septuagint when he read Isaiah 61, very possibly required the Septuagint was out and about back then. They were writing in the language of their day, that Hellenized sort of Greek influence. The Stoics, the Neoplatonists, all that jazz was going on, and for legitimacy of the Hebrew faith, they wanted to get out there, It's hard to identify even all the details of the Civil War, much less a war 2,000 years ago. Yeah, man, it's an absolute art to try and get that down. But, it's a bit like Bob Ross with the joy of painting. We have the joy of revelation. So I need to keep that music for when Bob Ross concludes his show so I can use that. Okay, guys, lots of love. I'll see you all later, right? Let's do it tomorrow. We'll do it live. Wait, maybe Yeshua was quoting what the Hebrew text did say before the Masoretes changed it. Oh, you're adding layers of complexity. Oh, shake stars from the sky. Hello, I'm just leaving. So thank you for joining me tonight. This one, we'll see. I feel like I've spent a lot more time in this video saying, we'll see how this makes us feel instead of actually talking about the issues. So, right, I'll leave it there. Peace and love, dudes and dudettes. Oh, I hate that I said that. That's what happens when you do things live. You end up saying things you immediately regret. Right, Jules? See you later, Steven. See you later, everyone. All the best. I'll see you tomorrow.